Now check this out. Today on Morning Joe, they had this state senator from Mississippi who is running for the United States Senate. And this is the guy who Thad Cochran beat a couple of years ago when his Tea Party leanings and his racist views were exposed. Well, on Morning Joe, Eddie Glaude of Princeton asked him about the Confederate flag. Y'all, check how the conversation went.
If you were elected to the U.S. Senate, you're supposed to represent the whole state.
Yes, sir.
Your position around the Confederate flag, your position around hip-hop as the source of gun violence, your position around Robert E. Lee. I can go on and on and on.
Please do.
How do you convince black folk in this state that you're not a danger to them?
The story that you talked about, the hip-hop connection to violence, that was a study from Berkeley. Berkeley's not exactly a conservative institution, but it did link hip-hop to violence. That's Berkeley, not me. And I was just cited that on the radio show. That's the first thing. Number two, our flag has been here an awfully long time. And in 2001, 65% of Mississippians chose to keep that flag. Now, the thing about flags, like any symbol, is they are subject to different interpretations. But if 65% of the people have voted to keep that flag, we should respect their wishes. The flag can be offensive to some. I recognize that. But almost all symbols are offensive to someone. At some point, the majority has to control that decision. That's exactly what we did. So I'm going to stand with the majority in that instance. Now, if the people of Mississippi want to start another referendum and want to change it, that's the direct democracy concept they like to push sometimes. Okay, but I'm going to stand for that flag because the people have stood for that.
So how would you speak to that 38%? Those 38% of this state. I'm going to ask them after 100 years of relying on big government to save you, where are you today? After 100 years of begging for federal government scraps, where are you today? We've been dead last for 100 years.
Look, here's the real deal here. Chris McDaniel wants to defend the Confederate flag. For him to sit there and say that, well, 65% of the people voted for it, well, then everything is okay. No, it's not okay. Folks, let's just be real clear here. Mississippi wants to remain as if it is all about the Old South. They somehow don't want to accept that the Confederacy actually lost. Just so you can understand how racist Mississippi continues to be when it comes to the flag, when it comes to the past, in the United States Senate, the senior senator from Mississippi sits at the desk of Jefferson Davis. Who was Jefferson Davis? He was the president of the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis is the guy who led the Confederacy. And guess what? The senior senator still sits at his desk. They still honor Jefferson Davis with a holiday. They fly that racist flag. If you go to Statuary Hall, when you see every state gets 2 statues, they have 2 statues of Confederates. Mississippi does not want to come into the 21st century. And the reality is black folks and others in Mississippi should not elect to the United States Senate somebody who is willing to defend and accept that racist flag. But here's the other thing in Mississippi. Don't give me all this big government stuff. The reality is 42+% of your entire budget comes from the federal government. Mississippi gets more money from the federal government than they get from taxes in their state. And so all these red state people who love talking about the federal government, guess what? Without the federal government, Mississippi would be broker than broke. The reality is this. It's time to end white supremacy. It is time to end what is happening all across this country, and Mississippi has no business flying that racist flag. You want to celebrate America? Fly the United States flag, because the Confederates, they lost. They lost to the North. They lost to the Union. And no one who wants to serve in the U.S. Senate should be willing to defend that racist flag.